Hello, welcome to my channel Pens and Syringes. I am a teacher and here I make informational videos about teaching. I've been a teacher in India for 10 years and have recently started my journey of becoming a teacher here in the UK. So to apply for my PGC with UTS, I had to appear for an A-star equivalency test. This video will share my experience on how did I pass my A-star equivalency test with no extra classes in just a week's time as a non-native English speaker. So let's go and see the tips and tricks that can help you pass A-star equivalency. So let's start. I would like to begin by showing the number of questions that are there in the paper, the marks, and the time we should use to complete each question. Now, it's very important that you manage your time well because my experience while appearing for the paper was if I had not timed my paper, I wouldn't have been able to finish it. And if you're not able to finish even one question, you lose big amount of marks, which can lead to your failure in the exam. So, question number one is a very small question, and it is 4 marks, and it should not take more than 5 minutes. Question number two is for 8 marks. It should take approximately 10 minutes. Question number three is for 12 marks and should take approximately 15 minutes. Question number four is for 16 marks and should take approximately 20 minutes. Question number five, which is for 20 marks, should take approximately 24 minutes. And question number six is for 40 marks and should take approximately 45 minutes. The overall paper is for 1 hour 45 minutes, and this is how I had timed my paper, and I was able to complete my paper on time. Rather, I had last 5 minutes left so that I could go through my paper. The recommended order, there is a recommended order to finish your paper. Of course, you see that question number six comes first on the list because it carries most amount of marks. So hence, question number six should be dealt with first, and it should be given not more than 45 minutes. You will be tempted to write a lot, but understand that time management is very important while you're appearing your A-star equivalency test. It's an online paper, you have to type the answer, so you have to time your paper well. Next come question number one, which is for 4 marks, should take less than 5 minutes. It should be second on your number. Question number three should be third. Question number five should be fourth. Question number five, question number four is fifth on the list, and question number two is last on the list. Why I have set this order is because if you go through the paper, every paper will have an insert that looks like this. There are two sources, source A and source B. Now, question number two and question number four actually deals with both the sources. So while you're appearing question number four and two, you have to refer to whole of source A and whole of source B, which requires a lot of time. Now, these especially question number two carries less weightage, but because it refers to whole of source, so it carries 8 marks, but it refers to whole of source A and B. It should be attempted last because it takes a lot of time and you'll be tempted to write a lot. So let's keep it last on the list. And here, if you want to prepare more, you'll understand that these are from the IGCSE papers, AQA, equivalency test. Question number one to question number four has been taken from the GCSE paper, paper two. Question number five is the same as question number four from paper one of GCSE exam. And question number six is a picture description. So there are two options available, rather three options available, but I had taken picture description because I thought that picture is easier to describe. Now let's see what you have to do in question number six. We'll go as per the order. In question number six, because it carries most marks, what I had done is I had prepared a template. I had prepared a template for a picture description, and I was ready to alter it, modify it according to the picture. So I had a beginning in my mind, the middle part was something that I would write by looking at the picture, and then I had an end in the mind. So if you see, I had prepared a template. I had memorized it by writing a sunny description and a winter description. So you write both these in description, and when you look at the picture, if it's sunny, you write the sunny description. You look at the picture, if it's windy, you write the windy description. So for the sunny description, I've used all the good languages and something that I could memorize and which could add marks to my test. Here you use a lot of simile, you use a lot of metaphor, alliteration, you use a lot of punctuation, because this is something that you are going to write, you're going to learn and then write. You can always make sure that this part of the text has a lot of things that actually the examiner is looking for. So this is how I had done. I had a sunny description and I had a winter description in my mind, and then I looked at the picture, and luckily for me it was a picture which a lot of sunny description, so I wrote my sunny description. So always prepare a template, always keep, for a picture description, if you're going to attempt a picture description, always keep in mind that you need to have a template which you can use for any picture, and it actually works. Question number one, moving on to question number one. So here in question number six, you have to at least write 3 to 4 big paragraphs, and make sure that you finish it on time, because you're tempted to write a lot and it is only 45 minutes that you can give to this question. Moving on to question number one. Now question number one looks something like this. It looks, so here is the practice paper from AQA, and this is how question number one looks. So it's from one source, which is source A, and the lines are clearly specified, which is line 10 to 30. Make sure you read only these lines, and then you start with choose four statements which are true. Now this is generally a very easy question, and you will see that most of the students score marks over here, full marks. So you make sure that you don't need to prepare anything. Just make sure that you read the lines well and you're able to answer this question very easily. Some of the statements might be confusing, but it is either true or false. There's no in between. Just keep that in your mind while you're attempting this question. After question number one comes question number three. Now, question number three, let's move on to see what I had prepared for question number three. Now, for question number three, four, and five, this is the checklist that you should always keep in your mind. Your examiner will look for metaphors which are not literally comparison. I hope you get some knowledge about these. At least if you're having a week's time, spend at least 1.5 to 2 days in getting information about these things that we are going to discuss now. Metaphor is not literally a comparison, like simile compares with like and as. So while you're writing the answers to this question, make sure you use these as much as possible. You use a metaphor which is a comparison, like the sun dripped warmth like a hot wax, which is like a hot wax, which is a simile, and the metaphor would be the sky showed off its artistic trickery. So all these, this is not literally a comparison, but just you are comparing one thing with another. Simile compares with like and as. There can be a hyperbole as well, an exaggeration, a personification where a human emotion is given to a non-human. There has to be repetition helps the reader to imagine why are you repeating. There has to be a repetition of words. Emotive language, use emotional language if you can. Rhetorical question is not literally a question, but it is just to evoke a planned response. Factual language will give you facts. So like 10% of the population did this, 20% of children did this. So it's a factual language. Adverbs, adjectives, verbs, words, phrases. Try to use them as much as possible. The tone, it can be sad or it can be happy. Tense can be past or present tense. Sibilance is used to make sinister or peace, and contrast it with a juxtapose, a contrast. So these are the things that you should keep in your mind, and I will provide you a link to these as well. So when you see that video, you will get a clear idea about what it can be. So question number three, four, and question number five, you should make sure that you are using these as much as possible whenever and wherever and however possible, because this is what your examiner is actually looking for. Moving on to question number three, which is for 12 marks. Now, while writing this answer, you have to focus on the writer's technique. Pick quotes from text and explanation of effects using directly related language. Here, the more explanation you pick up from the text, the more marks you get. And very important is to focus over here only on the advised lines. The lines are clearly given, do not go out of context. At least write 3 paragraphs going in depth of 3 points. How can you write the 3 paragraphs? This is how you can start. You can start with an introductory sentence and say, in this source, the writer uses variety of language to describe what he is trying to describe. A middle paragraph, and you will end with all these combines to create an image. Always explain metaphors. Write about the impression that is created in the reader's mind. Like, you as a reader, what did you think? And how would you become eager to read more, to learn more? So let's see what's there in the paper. So this is the paper. That's question number one for you. Let's skip question number two for now and move on to question number three. Here in question number three, as you see, they have referred to only one source, which is source B. And this question will always ask you, how does the writer use language to describe something? How does the writer use language to describe this? And while you are answering this, how does the writer use language, you have to keep in mind the techniques that we saw the writer's use of writer's language. These are the things that you should keep in mind, that the writer used this to create, the writer used personification, the writer used metaphor. So let's see the paper and see if we can find out something. There is no such thing as an equal life chance in Britain. This is not being used to the form of free school meals, child now scrubbing toilet for a minimum wage, or for the Eton alumni born to sit in Downing Street. The system is rigged, and it is rigged, so there is a reputation over here, if you see. So what does this reputation create? It creates a sense of how rigged the system is, and how infuriating it is to the writer, how sad the writer is about it. So these are the kind of things that you have to see. And you can also see that I had spoken about factual language. So here you see 60% of their richer pair, 80% of people are thought. So you can also say that the writer used factual language to bring out emotions. So if you see the last sentence, especially this one, the best comprehensives and academics practice social selection by stealth siphoning out the poor kids on a free school meals. If you see, there is a repetition, there is alliteration of the S sound, social selection by stealth, siphoning of the poor kids on the school meals. So there's a repetition of the S sound, which alliteration of the S sound, and this is also called as sibilance. So the writer always use sibilance mostly to bring about emotions. Sometimes it can be a positive emotion, or it can be a emotion that is making you sad. It can be a joyous tone, or it can be a melancholic tone. So the writer over here has used sibilance. So these are the things that you have to point out while you're doing question number three. So you have to keep in mind these techniques, and at least point out to four or five such techniques. So use the moment you find one point, one technique, make sure that you write a whole in-depth paragraph about it. And when you're writing, make sure that you are writing it as a reader. As a reader, what did you think? That's why I say write about the impressions created in the reader's mind. Like, as a reader, what did I feel, and how am I becoming eager to read more, or what is the kind of feeling that I get? Am I becoming sad, or am I becoming happy about reading something? This is about question number three. After question number three, the order says that we have to attempt question number five. The question number five was for 20 marks, and I made sure that I attempted after question number three. So here, again, this is related only to one source. You either agree or you disagree. So there is a statement made, you have to agree to it or you have to disagree to it. So in this question, you have to consider that you are a lawyer in a courtroom, and you have to give evidence to back up your answer. If you're saying something, why are you saying it? Underline the line numbers, very important, because here again they will give you a few lines, and do not go out of context. While it's a question about whether you agree or disagree, this question should also come with a partial disagreement by saying that I do agree, but however, it gives a feeling that you're evaluating the answer. And here, what this is how I had written the answer. I began by leaving two lines. This is something that I have to summarize. So summary is something that comes at the after you write the whole paragraph, you have to summarize. So I have to begin by a summary, and summary you can't write the beginning. You have to read the whole thing, understand the whole thing, and then you write a summary for it. So that's why you leave two lines at the beginning. Write the bullets main points. There are some bullet points which are given here. Make sure you use words like however, whenever, possibly, perhaps, might, possibly. Because you are a lawyer, you are evaluating, you have to use these. We see that this point is conveyed by a verb or a motive verb, which emphasizes that this is how a lawyer would probably speak. So this is how you have to write your answers. And also make sure that you use words like however, like I always said, repetition of however, linking the bullets point together. Let's see how does the question look. So question number five again is from one source, and it's a question where you have to agree or disagree. You will see that this is how the question is. This question refers to source B. Here there are a few lines which are given. Please make sure that you star them, you mark them so that you don't go out of context. So always, this question always says that a student having read this section of the text said the writer makes the reader feel sympathetic to the poor girl who seems to be hopeless and pathetic. To what extent do you agree? In your response, they say you could, but you should, always you should, write about your own impressions of the writer's feeling. Evaluate how the writer created these impressions. See that the writer wanted to create sympathy. Yes, I would agree, because the writer writes that the little face was pale and thin. So when the writer says the face was pale, the face was pale, it was thin, it was wrinkled, where the dimples out to have been. So little girl's face was pale, thin, wrinkled. So you can say that these are the adjectives that have been used by the writer, and then you have to write your own impression, like why did the writer use this? Of course, it is to create sympathy. At the same time, he's showing off that how the girl has lost her childishness, her youthfulness, and now the face has become pale and thin. And at the same time, the writer also writes that the face is wrinkled where the dimples ought to have been. So her face is already wrinkled. So here, if you see, there this is a contrast that the writer has used, wrinkled and dimples together. So these are the points, few points that you can highlight while you're writing the answer to this question 5. And let's go through this and see how you will write it. You Let's go through the points again, that you have to make sure that it is something where you have to be a lawyer. So you have to say that, okay, as a lawyer, yes, I do agree. This is how the writer has used language to describe it. However, perhaps, possibly, sometimes you can also say that, however, the writer also says this, and however, the writer also does this. So, this point is conveyed by using the adjectives pale, thin, and that emphasizes or conveys that the girl has lost her youthfulness. So, this is how you can write this answer and describe it. Moving on to the next question, which is question number 4. Now, here is the big work to do. Source A and source B is to be evaluated together. It's a 16 marks answer, but you have to read the whole of source A and the whole of source B. While attempting this, consider the text as a whole and always use the blurbs. The blurbs are the description line that are written at the beginning of the text. 4 paragraphs in detail, in depth, that the writer has used this technique, maybe a metaphor, to explain this by using this adjective, and why does the writer use it, and what is the impression that it creates in the reader's mind. You have to write as fast as possible. Always use explanation quotes. You can also use the quotes, like the writer said, the face is pale, thin. So you can always quote all these that the writer says. How will you answer this question is, you'll say from source A. So you have to write source A and source B both. Okay, so let's go first, see the paper, and then come back to this. So here, let's go to question number 4. Here, of course, it's a 16 marks paper, 16 marks question, and the whole of source A and source B is to be considered. Compare how the two writers have conveyed their different attitudes to child's poverty. So, both the sources will talk about the same thing, and in this question, they will ask you about how the writer has used different attitude or similar attitude, similar things or different things. You have to compare their different attitudes. Like one writer is positive about it, one writer is negative about it, one writer is doing it in a humorous way, the other writer is giving it more facts, one writer is more serious about it, the other writer is not so serious about it. So this is how the difference would be. Compare the method they use to convey those attitudes and support your answers with references to both the text. Now let's go to the marking scheme and see what is the kind of answers that you can write here. So this is the level 4 answer. You might not be able to write it this nicely, but yes, this is the level, this is the kind of answer that can get you maximum marks. But of course, there are different levels to it, and you get different marks when you fall into each of these categories. Let's just see the level 1, the level that fetches you highest marks, and maybe you can write something similar to that. The writer, so here you start with talking about source A first. The writer elicits the reader's sympathy. So the writer here is talking about sympathies. It's more sympathetic for the girl who is living in poverty. And then here, see here there is an explanation or a quote which has been included in double quotes. There was something crucially pathetic in hearing this infant. So the adjectives cruel and pathetic. The writer has used adjectives cruel and pathetic. Why did the writer use it? To demonstrate his attitude that the girl's situation is extremely unfair. So the writer has started with source A, given a few points over here in source A, like the adjective that has been used, the phrase that has been used, and then moved on to the source B. Here, the writer has the attitude power. It is more appealing as she tells us. So here again, the writer's attitude has been discussed, and then a few quotes have been included. A few techniques have been given, like personification, and then the description is given. A verb has been used, like starving, and what does the verb actually indicates? The writer literally demonstrates that children are hungry, but also that they are metaphorically starved of opportunities in life. So not just they are hungry, they are also starved of opportunities in life. Now this is where you have to work the maximum. You can find out that the verb starving is conveying the author's attitude, but what does it mean to you? How do you understand it? The reader's effect is what you have to write in the description. So the description shouldn't be something like, okay, but the verb starving means that children are starving. No, they're not starving, they are hungry, and they're also starving of opportunities in life. This is how you have to write the answers, and keep this in mind. So this is one of the sample answers, and let's go back to the notes. So here again in the notes it says the same thing. From source A, use the quote, explain it, and then repeat it. Like this adjective says this, and this is what I think as a reader. This is the description. This verb says this, and this is the impression it can have on the reader's mind. Then, in contrast, source B, again you can pick up a quote, a adjective, an adverb, a metaphor, a simile, personification, and explain it. Again you can use the same thing, and then again a quote, then explain it. So you have to write the explanation. Very importantly, should be your own explanation and something that is relevant to the text. Then explanation using implies, portrays, emphasizing, suggests, reveals, convey. This verb pale and thin portrays that the girl did not eat, she was hungry, and write as many explanations as possible, as many adjectives, verbs, metaphors, simile, alliteration, whether it's an emotive tone, or a happy tone, or is it sarcasm, or if it's humor. All these have to be picked up and explained. For this question, also notice if there's a difference in the tense used in both the sources. So some of the source might be in present tense, the other source might be in past tense. Use your perceptive inference to see what others cannot. Very important, when you're giving your explanation, you have to use your perceptive inference, that is, write something that is not explicitly given in the text. Okay, you should also write a line about the tone and what does the writer feel. Does the writer feel sympathetic, or the writer is the the writer can feel sympathetic, have a number of emotions. And then you end with a summary. So when you're writing this answer, you have to see that source A, what is the similarity and difference in both of these sources, that has to be considered while writing this answer. Moving on to question number 2, it's for 8 marks, and 10 minutes is maximum what you can spend on this, and a comparison of similarities and differences. So before we go on to this, let's see the question from the paper. How does it look? So that's question number 2 for you. In this, again, as I told you, question number 4 and question number 2 is about whole of source A and source B. You will have to refer to both of these sources and write about either similarities or differences between the impact poverty has on the children. So, how are both the children similar in the text as far as the impact of poverty is considered? Let's go to the marking scheme and see what are the points that can be picked up from the text and how is the sample answer. So over here, let's go to the answer that gives you most amount of marks. Now here you're talking about in both the sources the children are affected. So you're talking about similarity. So we will see that in both the sources, children are affected physically and materially by poverty. When you make a statement, you have to pick up quotes from the text and explain why and how. So in source A, this point that has been made is explained by this particular quote. Although the weather was severe, the girl was dressed in a cotton gown with a shawl that is wrapped around her shoulders. What does this suggest or imply or portray is what you are going to write. This is your perceptive inference of what you understand. So you will make a point first, you will use the quote, and then you will write the explanation. So this is, if you see, the point that has been made. Okay, this is the quote that has been picked up from the text, and then suggesting, what does it suggest? Is what has been written, that she lacks the basic necessities. The fact that the shawl is threadbare suggests that it's virtually worn out and not fit. So this is something which is not explicitly given in the text, but you have to write your own inference. So all the answers can be written in this way, all the points. can be written in this way. And then moving on to in source B also. So you make one point and then you say how source A explains it and how source B explains it. Same technique has been used. You made the point initially on the top. Now you're going to give the quotes, and then you will explain by using this suggest, portraits, emphasizes, anything. This is the explanation that you have to write as your explanation. What do you understand from it? So this is about question number 2. So let's see about my notes. A comparison of similarities and differences requires evidence. Don't write here big quotes because it's for 8 marks. You have to understand that a 8 mark question and a 24-mark question should be dealt differently. Introductory statement, like it was there in the introduction, it said what is the point that you want to make. Then how does source A, you have to include quotes from source A, then explain it. Similarly, from source B, and then explain it. Okay, and then there can be a summarizing statement. Make sure you only compare only similarities or differences. If it's about similarity, talk about the similarity. If it's about differences, talk about the differences. Now the question over here says similarities, so I'll only talk about the similarities. I won't talk about the differences. So this is about question number 2. No mention of language. So you don't have to say that the writer has used metaphor, simile, verb, adjectives. No need to use that. Just write your point, give the quote, and explain. And again, talking about perceptive inference is very important when you're writing the whole paper. Your own thoughts. Did you understand? To see what others cannot. What is the effect on the reader? Connotation. Connotation means that if I see something, I will connote it to something. Like if I see a train, I will connote it to a travel. So connote, what does it mean? If you see wrinkles, what does it mean? Old age. So that way you have to write your own perceptive inference and connote it. Okay, that's all about a star equivalency test. I will probably put some links so that you can use them. If there's any question, please let me know. And yes, that's all. All the best if you're going to appear for the